Hi Bill, Tom here from Family Marine. Hey, good news, we got your boat all done. Just in time, it's snowing out today. But of course it's supposed to be 60 degrees out this Saturday or Sunday, something like that. So we are all set. I apologize, I thought you were picking it up today, which is Tuesday, and I was wrong. I found out from Corey that you're actually picking it up on Thursday. So we were in a panic to get that fuel gauge fixed, which we did, by the way. And then I found out, well, we didn't have to have it. It wasn't that much of a panic because you won't be here till Thursday. So we're all set to go. We got a full tank of gas, boat's cleaned, prepped, everything's tested. We're all set to go. Now, normally I would do a run through with you when you get here to pick up the boat, show you how to operate it, show you how to break it in, things like that. But of course, because of this COVID-19 thing, it's easiest if I just do this little video for you. And then you can always have it to refer to if you ever need to. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to run through the boat, I'm going to run through the engine, I'm going to show you everything that there is to know. And this video should provide all the information that you would ever need to know, I hope. Okay, so we're going to start in the front. Starting up front, of course, we have our horn, we have our pop-up cleat, we have our LED navigation light, our LED docking light. As we go down the side, there's a little hoop here that you can tie your boat bumper to, so your big white thing that hangs down, you just tie it right onto that. There's another one in the back, and of course 2 more on the other side. So as we come down the side, everything's looking good. We've got our stern boarding ladder, telescopic boarding ladder. And I want to point this out. This is our transducer for our depth finder, okay? A transducer has to get solid water, no air bubbles, on the bottom of the transducer so that it'll read. If there's air bubbles there, it'll go wacko on you, it won't read properly. Okay, so as you notice that this transducer is tilted down just a little bit, all right? That's the proper position for the transducer to be in. Now, this transducer is on a kick-up bracket. So let's say you were driving along and you hit a twig, and all of a sudden the twig hit this, it'll pop up out of the way. So there again, if you're driving along and all of a sudden your depth finder just quits working, yeah, you probably hit something and this transducer popped up on you. Just come back here. Yeah, you got to get in the water to do this and swing it down to about that position. A little bit angled down, just a little bit, so it gets solid water on the bottom of the transducer, no air bubbles. Okay? Now we've got it on one of our trailers, and I'm guessing that you're going to get the boat out to South Dakota and then bring the trailer back. At least I hope you bring the trailer back. I got a set of transom tie-down straps on the back of the boat holding it to the trailer. And trust me, you cannot get the boat off the trailer unless you take those off. So I tried, I've been there, I've done that. It doesn't work. Please remember to bring those back when you're done with it. Okay, so the motor. Now the motor being brand new, of course we're going to have to break it in. And the break-in procedure on this motor is the first hour, no more than 3,000 RPM. You might want to write this down. First hour, no more than 3,000 RPM. There's an hour meter built into the tachometer, and we'll show you that when we get up to the dash. Okay, second hour, no more than 4,000 RPM. And by the way, during the first and second, and the next 8 hours actually, vary the throttle speeds. You know, speed it up a little bit, slow it down a little bit. You don't have to go like this, but just run it for a few minutes at 2,000 RPM. Raise it up to 3, back it down to 25. Yeah, you know, just give it a nice well-rounded break-in period. Okay, so from hour 2 to hour 10, short bursts of wide open throttle. Okay, what does that mean? Crack her open, trim it up, get it going wide open for a minute or so. But what they don't want you doing is driving across the lake for 10 miles at wide open throttle. That's just too hard on a brand new engine. We need to vary the throttle speeds, get it broken in nice and good. Give it a well-rounded, you don't have to baby it, like tie it to a dock and let it idle for 10 hours. We don't want that. We want a nice, well-rounded break-in period. Okay? Now, one of the things that you'll notice as soon as you turn the key on, there's a beep. and then that beep shuts off. That's for the warning horn. That initial beep tells you that yes, the warning system is working. If that beep doesn't shut off, oh Lord, we got a problem. Okay? Now, I'm not sure if you're aware of this or not, but you cannot run this motor out of water. These water intakes, these vent holes right here, have to be in water in order to suck cooling water to cool the engine. So you back the boat down into the water, you make sure that these are in the water, you start the engine, and water gets sucked through those from the water pump all through the power head and back out. Okay, if you run it out of water, you'll ruin the water pump impeller. Oh golly, yeah, in about 30 seconds you can ruin that water pump impeller. We don't want that. Okay, there is a overheating warning horn on this engine. So if you're driving along and all of a sudden, let's say this horn comes on, you may have clogged up these water intakes with weeds, or golly, I saw one guy had a plastic bag, a bread bag, get wrapped around the lower unit, and it shut off the water supply, and the engine overheated at 240 degrees. That overheating warning horn will come on, and what will happen is the motor will go into limp mode, L-I-M-P, limp mode. Even though you have the throttle handle all the way forward, the motor will slow down to no more than 1,000 RPM. You could push that handle all day long, it's not going to go any faster than 1,000 RPM. Limp mode, that's in order to get you back to the launching ramp so you can load it on a trailer and bring it in. Personally, what I would do if that overheating warning horn came on, I'd shut the engine off, pop the hood, and let it cool down. Okay? Then you can restart it and hopefully get it back. Tilt it up, clear any weeds off the lower unit. Okay? And by the way, in order to pop the hood, all you do is pull this little handle out right here till it clicks, and you can lift the hood right off. Go straight up. You get it back on, you pull down till it clicks. All right? Now, that warning horn also doubles as a low oil pressure warning horn. Now, I'll be honest with you, 40 years of doing this, I've never seen a low oil pressure warning horn come on, but theoretically it could happen, so they put a horn on it. The way to tell the difference between an overheating warning horn and a low oil pressure warning horn is when if the horn comes on and you shut the key off and you turn the key on and the horn comes on right away, that's overheating. If the horn doesn't come on until you start the engine, that's low oil pressure. But like I say, I doubt that you'd ever see that. These motors don't use oil. Golly, you could get 5,000 to 6,000 hours on these things. We don't see them using oil. All right. So we've got a stainless steel mercury inertia prop on there for you. And this engine is made to run at an operating range of 5,000 to 6,000 RPM. So we put a prop on there that will get you to operate at wide open throttle, trimmed up with a light load, somewhere in the high 5,000 RPM range. That way you get the best overall performance, good hole shot, good mid-range speeds, good top end, all right? We want those RPMs to be in the high 5,000, so 55 to 6,000 RPM, wide open, trimmed up with a light load, all right? We know that prop will work. We've got your hydraulic steering system installed on this boat. You can see the cylinder right on the front of the engine. And when we get to the dash, I'll show you the fill plug for the reservoir. There again, you should never need to do anything with that hydraulic steering system. If we have an oil leak somewhere, yeah, we got a problem. A seal's bad, a hose is bad, something. If we lose our steering, our hydraulic steering, we got a problem, all right? So we want to just be aware of that. But truth is, you should never, ever have to do anything with that. Here's another transom tie-down strap over on this side. You can see our rear-mounted speakers, our ski tow bar, our fill cap. Now, for gas. The tank is full. This engine is made to run on 87 octane with up to 10% ethanol. If they ever go to 15% ethanol, nope, can't do it. Cannot use E15. E10 is the most. I really don't even like E10 because here's what can happen. If you have E10 in your gas tank and you let the boat sit outside in the sun for 2 to 4 weeks, the alcohol that's mixed with the gas can separate and settle to the bottom of the tank. All right? Then you got this blob of pure alcohol in the bottom of the tank. You start your engine and it moves over to the fuel pickup, which is of course at the bottom of the tank, and all of a sudden you're trying to burn pure alcohol inside your engine and it don't run. Okay, so that's a bad thing. And then what we have to do is we have to go through the whole fuel system on the engine and clean out that alcohol because it can turn to gel. Looks like Jell-O pudding, like a white clear Jell-O pudding. Oh, it gets nasty. And then we also have to suck all the fuel out of your tank and vacuum the bottom of the tank to get any alcohol that may have settled in the bottom of the tank out of there so we can put fresh fuel in. So what we prefer that you use is, it's called 91 octane non-oxygenated fuel. All right, there's a little white sticker, at least in Minnesota, I don't know about South Dakota, a little white sticker by the pump says non-oxygenated, to be used in classic cars, snowmobiles, motorcycles, boats, ATVs, chainsaws, lawnmowers. Okay, there's no alcohol in that. So that's the gas that we prefer that you use. You don't have to. If you replenish your fuel quite often, you can get away with 87 octane fuel with 10% ethanol because you're constantly refreshing your fuel. But often in a pontoon, it can sit for a month. Sometimes people say, I didn't even use a whole tank of gas during the summer. Yeah, well, that's a bad deal. Okay? So, with that being said, I think we're pretty much done on the outside, so let's take a look at the inside. Before we get inside, I wanted to show you this. It's a little easier from the outside. You'll notice that red switch there. That's your battery on-off switch. Okay? So, when you're done using the boat, you just simply turn that switch to the off position. You see the white arrow in the middle pointing up? Right now the battery switch is off. You turn it to the right and that's on. Okay? Pretty basic, on and off. That's all you got to do. Okay, starting up in the front of the boat, of course, we've got our two forward-facing chase lounges. This one opens up, our trash can is in there. In there is your owner's manual. Now, of course, you got to read all that before you go boating, right? Yeah, sure. My wife just says they're suggestions. Don't worry about it. Yeah. Storage underneath the seats, a couple movable cup holders, a couple of speakers up here. Down below is a couple of USB jacks on each side. That's that black socket that you see over there. Stainless steel vent cover is below that. Pet food tray, of course. You probably know about the pop-up table here behind the chase lounge. A couple of speakers back here, and of course U series boats have 2 more speakers out the back, so a total of 6 speakers on this one. In the Ultra Lounge is another black plastic USB jack, plugging in cell phones, things like that. I think you already know how to work the Ultra Lounge. Co-pilot's chair, flip-up armrests. This is a lever to recline the seat. All right. So let's take a look at the most important part, which is the helm. Now I did turn our battery switch on, and by the way, it takes 2 clicks to turn that battery switch on. So the white arrow on that battery switch goes down and to the right when you turn it on. 2 clicks. Okay, so for starting the motor, you always leave it in neutral. You do not advance the throttle. There is no choke. This is an electronic fuel injected engine. All you do is turn the key. Now we've already ran the motor. Everything is set to go. So down here you just go to on. That's that warning system I was telling you about. And crank it over. Okay. Right up above the key switch is a 12-volt power outlet, kind of like what's in your car. Here is our canopy switch, up and down on our power canopy. Now, by the way, if you're going to open up the bimini top in order to keep the sun off of you, let's say, what you want to do is lower the bimini all the way down. All right. Now you go back there and you take the boot off, which the boot is the cover that covers the bimini itself. It says Barletta on it. So now you take your bimini boot off, and then you hit your up button. The reason we tell you to do this is if you had the bimini in the up position and you took the boot off, this rear bar right here is going to come slamming down on you, and of course you don't want that. You could hurt somebody. That's why we have to lower the bimini all the way down, then take the boot off, and then open up the bimini. And of course, once you get the bimini open, you take these arms, and this little bracket down on the bottom goes up into this bracket right here. This little round pin goes in the round hole. And that's what holds the bimini open as you're ripping across the lake at 100 miles an hour, okay? If we didn't have this bar, there'd be a sticker on there that says do not exceed 25 miles an hour, because the wind could rip that bimini right off the back of the pontoon. So we put these support arms on the front in order to lock it into this bracket right here so it doesn't go ripping back on you if you hit a heavy headwind or if you're going too fast. Okay, so throttle shift, of course, just forward throttle, reverse throttle. You don't have to lift up on any lever or anything like that. You do have a trim and tilt switch right here. There's also a trim and tilt switch back on the motor. All right. Here's your emergency safety switch hooked to this red lanyard. Often I get a phone call, Tom, my motor won't start and my horn doesn't come on when I turn the key on. Well, there's a sign that somebody knocked this thing off. There's a red pin down here that little loop goes through, and then you flip the switch up, and now we got our warning system working again. That is your safety lanyard. That's the first thing I'm going to tell you to check if you ever call me and tell me that your motor doesn't start. All right. Here's your depth finder. And in the owner's manual is the owner's manual for the depth finder. I'm not going to go through the whole depth finder because there's just a plethora of things on there. But you simply hit the power button down there, and it takes a minute to boot up. Let's see, maybe I have to hold the power button a little longer than what I did. There we go. Okay, so while that's booting up, I'm going to talk a little bit more. Down here, we have a USB jack and an 1/8 inch jack. Now this is hooked to your stereo. Okay, so if you want to listen to music on your iPhone, you can do it via your Bluetooth, or you can do it via a USB cord or an 1/8 inch cord. All right. Here's our switch panel. We have our navigation lights, which is our red and green up front, and our white that's on top of the bimini, and our anchor light, which is just our white light on top of the bimini. So if you're sitting, not moving at night, you have your anchor light on, and when you're moving at night, you have your navigation lights on. And you'll notice that when your navigation lights come on, your gauge lights also come on. All right? Off being in the middle. There's our horn. We don't have courtesy lights. We don't have a bilge pump. We do have a dome light. So when you get your bimini open, if you have your bimini open at night, there is a light that shines down, which is with your dome light. Docking lights or headlights are mounted in the bow of the boat. And then there's 4 accessory switches down here, which none of them are hooked to anything. They're just extra switches. Okay? Now, getting back to the depth finder, you'll see that it has booted up. Down here it says accept. Push right in the center. Maybe this one. There we go. And right now I have it on a digital or analog screen. So if we were in the water, you would see structure, you would see fish. And as you go through the owner's manual, there's all kinds of different menus, because this is a GPS unit, of course, so you can get a GPS on there, and There's just all kinds of, whoops. There you go to your chart, your sonar. There's just all kinds of different things. Split screen. This is not a touch screen, so you have to toggle down using your arrows left and right. And there's, for example, is our sonar, so we push the middle button. Nope, we push that button, and that brings us back to our sonar. And then, of course, to shut it off, we could either hit the battery switch back there, or we could just hit this power button, and it'll go to power off, or it'll go to that little menu, and we toggle over to power off, and boom. Nope, I'm sorry, that's the light. We go to power off. No, we don't. There, I just held it in for about 2 seconds. It'll power off in a second. There we go. Okay, 5-position tilt wheel. Down here's a button. You push down on that and you can tilt the wheel up and down. Okay, this is our tachometer. So as I mentioned earlier, 5,000 to 6,000 RPM is wide open throttle on here, preferably high 5,000s. That little LCD screen down below is our hour meter. So that's what you use to keep tabs of your hours on the engine. Below that is our fuel gauge. That was what we had to get fixed. Voltmeter. Fully charged battery is going to read about 12 and a half volts. You get down to 10 volts because you've been listening to your stereo all day long, yeah, you're not going to get your motor started. All right, you got to be a little cautious of that. Our speedometer, which is GPS driven, so we don't have anything on the back of the boat to drive that speedometer. And our trim gauge. Okay, so if our key was on and our motor is down right now, so as I tilt the motor up, you can see our trim gauge, our needle comes up. All right. Now, the question I get sometimes is, what's the proper trim angle for the motor? Well, it's hard to say because it depends on the load that you have in the boat, the speed that you're going, the lake conditions. There's many different variables on how far to trim the engine. So what I tell people to do is get it out there and trim it up to the point where the propeller starts to suck air, and you'll hear it and you'll see the RPM pickup because now it's kind of freewheeling. We don't want that. So that's a sign that says you went too far. So just hit the down button a little bit, and that the prop will bite solid water. We call it ventilation. Some people call it cavitation, but the proper word for it is ventilation because we're sucking air down from the surface of the water and it's getting on the propeller blades. And we don't want that. We want solid water on the propeller blades. So if you trim up too high, yep, there's my sign, trim back down, away we go. Now, stereo. When you turn the battery switch on, the stereo will automatically come on. I've searched through the Hertz owner's manual trying to figure out a way to default it so that the stereo doesn't come on when you turn the battery switch on. Yeah, there isn't a way. I cannot find anything in that owner's manual to get this to stay off when you turn the battery switch on. So, first thing I did when I turned the battery switch on is I came up here and I shut this off. So to turn it back on, there's a power button, source, SRC. I hold that for about 3 seconds or so, and it'll boot up.
Contact go for state 1 call before
okay, my volume control right here, I can turn it. I can toggle through different stations. There's all my presets. All right. There's my dimmer light. I can, change colors on it if I want. You don't have a subwoofer in this boat, so the sub plus, sub minus won't work. Here's a menu down here. You can scroll through all those different menus and change what you want. All right. To shut it off, again, you push and hold that button, and it'll power off. Okay. Oh, as I mentioned earlier, the reservoir for the hydraulic fluid for the hydraulic steering system is right here. Underneath the helm is a little tank that's full of hydraulic fluid. So if we ever have hydraulic fluid, say, dripping under our dash, dripping in front of the motor, yeah, we got a problem. We got to fix that. It's not supposed to leak any oil. All right. So it's the hydraulic steering system is going to make it a lot easier for you to turn, particularly at high speeds. Now, sometimes what you may notice is even with the hydraulic steering, as you're driving along at wide open throttle, if you let go of the steering wheel, the boat wants to whip to the right. That's normal because we have a right-hand rotation propeller on here. So the prop is turning right, wants to turn the motor to the right, all right? So what you do is use the trim button to trim the motor up a little bit, and that steering torque will go away. Trim it up to the point where you can let go of the steering wheel and the boat goes straight down the lake. All right? That's a good trim angle to be at. Again, that's going to vary depending on the load in the boat, the conditions, the speed that you're going. Okay? So that's kind of a sign that says, yeah, I'm at the proper trim angle when I can let go of the steering wheel and it goes straight down the lake. Okay, so question I get a lot is care and maintenance on the vinyl. In the owner's manual is a do's and don'ts of vinyl. Tells you what to use to clean it, tells you what not to use to clean it. 409, no. Fantastic, yes. We have a fabulous product up front by Boat Bling. It's called Vinyl Sauce. And it's just, man, we buy it in a 5-gallon jug for our shop because we like it so much. It just does a great job really, really quickly. And then what we do is we spray it on the vinyl, we take a scrub brush, we scrub it up a little bit, and then we wipe it off with a wet rag. Or hose it off, or take a bucket of water, or whatever the case may be. All right. Me, I'm a little anal on my vinyl. I like to treat my vinyl with a UV inhibitor. And although the vinyl does have a UV inhibitor built into it from Barletta, I like to go a step further. We have a product up front called Conditioning Sauce, again by Boat Bling. And that has a high content of UV inhibitor built into it, so it reflects the ultraviolet light from the sun and doesn't dry out the vinyl, allowing the vinyl to crack and tear, or even the seams to come loose. Okay, so that stuff, I'd put that on my boat, my utility trailer, on the tires of my utility trailer, the tires on my garden tractor, my lawn furniture, anything that sits out in the sun that is susceptible to deteriorating from the ultraviolet light from the sun. I spray this stuff on usually once in the spring. I'm good to go for the whole summer. And my stuff lasts so much longer. I've got a 10-year-old utility trailer, and my tires show no signs of weather checking at all because I treat it once a year. Just spray it on, wipe it around, move on. It takes me 30 seconds to do my trailer. Okay, now on the flooring, don't use anything to protect the flooring like you do on the seats. If you put anything on the flooring, it'll get slippery. Because this is PVC flooring, it will not soak into the material like vinyl. Vinyl will soak in where PVC won't. So even if you're spraying this protectant on the seats, some of it's going to fall down on the flooring and it's going to get slippery. So what I do is I take my protectant, I spray it on a rag, I wipe it around. Spray it on a rag, wipe it around. All right? Try not to get any of this protectant on the flooring of the boat because, yep, they get slippery. Maintenance on the engine. Really, in this part of the country, come fall, change oil filter, gear lube. We use seafoam in the gas. So what I recommend there is the last tank that you fill up for the summer, dump a pint of seafoam in with it. Seafoam is a fuel conditioner. It'll treat your fuel so it doesn't turn rotten, and it's a really good fuel system cleaner. Okay? So that's when people bring their boats in for winterizing and storage here, that's what we do is we just dump a pint of seafoam in the gas, and that's going to treat the gas for all winter. So that's really going to be about it. If you have any questions, Corey's always available. I'm always available. If you need to speak with Jeremy, he's in our parts and service department, of course. You've got the phone number, you've got the email. Any questions that you might have, please let us know. So with that being said, I think we're done. Thank you very much. We appreciate your business.